The story continues, and Roxy tries to leave the house secretly, but Fate notices her, and Roxy tells him to not surprise her like that. Fate apologizes to her, and he mentions that he didn't notice that it was her, as she looked different. He wonders if she is going to the fort dressed like that, and Roxy states that it can't be helped as he noticed her, and she whispers in Fate's ear that she is about to go on a secret inspection in the town. Roxy asks Fate to keep this a secret from the others. She mentions that Haru will be mad at her if she finds out about this, and Fate states that he understands, and he tries to go back to work, but Roxy then asks Fate to accompany her on this inspection. The scene then cuts to Fate and Roxy in town, and Fate asks Roxy to wait for him. Greed states that it will blow her cover if Fate refers to her by her real name, and Roxy then also asks him to not use her real name, and she mentions that Fate should call her Roki for today. Greed then mentions that Fate just thought that it makes no difference, and Fate tells Greed to be quiet, but Roxy thinks that Fate said this to her instead, and she apologizes for being noisy. Fate mentions that he didn't say that to her, and he mentions that she is not noisy at all. Roxy is glad to hear this, and she mentions that she just got a little excited because she was with Fate. The both of them then get embarrassed, and Greed states that it must be nice to be young. Fate then tries to throw Greed, but Roxy mentions that she won't let Fate be so rough with his sword. She then mentions that this is the first time she has seen Fate's sword, and Fate thinks that this may seem suspicious to her as people with dud skills don't usually carry swords. Fate then thinks that he can't let her know about the Gluttony skill, and he accidentally drops his sword, but Roxy catches it, and she then looks at Greed. She tells Fate that he should do some maintenance on this sword, and she states that she will take Fate to the heartsmithy later. Fate thanks Roxy, and he states that Greed must be happy as they might finally get to do some maintenance on him. Roxy and Fate then hurry to the main market in the town, and Roxy notices some fine grapes on one of the shops. The shopkeeper tells her that she has good eyes, and he mentions that these were picked from Heart's territory this morning. Roxy wonders if she can taste them, and the shopkeeper gives her a few to taste, and Fate tastes them as well. Fate thinks that they are really good, and Roxy mentions that they did come from her house. The shopkeeper wonders what she means, and Greed tells Fate to tell the shopkeeper that Roxy's relatives work in Heart's territory. Fate does so, and Roxy then thanks Fate for the quick save. Someone then states that the Holy Knights are coming, and everyone in the market clears away for the Holy Knight. The people think that after the passing of Lord Mason, even the lowest rank of the Holy Knights have become overbearing, and Fate's stomach then growls. The Holy Knight wonders whose stomach was growling right now, and he finds out that it was Fate's. Fate then apologizes to the Holy Knight, and the Holy Knight mentions that he can't hear him, and he tries to kick Fate, but Roxy intervenes, and she mentions that Fate has already apologized. The Holy Knight then thinks that Roxy's face looks familiar, and the people gathered around thinks that the girl looks like Lady Roxy. Greed then tells Fate to pretend to be Roxy's lover, and flirt with her, so that the others don't find her real identity, and Fate states that he can't flirt with Roxy. Roxy hears this, and she then pretends to be Fate's lover, and she mentions that Fate shouldn't have skipped his breakfast. Fate states that she is right, and Roxy mentions that she won't make breakfast for him again if he doesn't eat it. The couple act manages to fool everyone, and they think that this girl can't be Roxy. Roxy then tells the Holy Knight that she will feed Fate properly the next time, and they take their leave. Afterwards Fate hears Roxy's thoughts, and he finds out that she has never put her arm around a man before, and she is still feeling excited. Fate then lets go of Roxy's arm, and he apologizes to her, but Roxy mentions that it's no big deal as she is used to it. Fate then thinks that being Lady Roxy's escort is too difficult, and they then go to a gem store. Roxy mentions that she is also interested in these sorts of things, as she is a girl, and she then asks the shopkeeper if these are also gems. The shopkeeper mentions that these are gem ores, and they need to break them first in order to find out whether they have gems inside or not. He mentions that it costs 10 copper per piece, and Greed states that Fate can use appraisal to get it in one shot. Fate then uses appraisal to find out a ore with gem inside, and he thinks that when he looks at Roxy right now, she looks like a normal girl. The shopkeeper then mentions that he will make it cheaper if Fate wants to buy this for his girlfriend, and he states that he can take that gem for a silver coin. Roxy then thanks the shopkeeper for showing them the gems, and she leaves with Fate. She then asks Fate if he knows any warriors. Fate states that he knows Oliver and Minerva, and Roxy wonders if he knows someone who is not retired. They then hear some people talk about the rumor of a stray monster, and one of them mentions that he has also heard the rumor of a certain warrior giving Goblin King's ears to an orphanage. Roxy wonders if they can tell her more about this story, and she wonders what else do they know about the stray monster. The people state that Roxy should talk to the warriors about this, and they leave. Roxy then asks Fate to take her to a place where warriors gather, and Fate wonders if this is what the inspection is about. Roxy states that this is an inspection for the recently appeared stray monster near the capital. The scene then cuts to Fate going to the restaurant that he frequents, and the master is surprised to see that Fate is still alive. Fate then introduces Roxy to the master as Roki, and he mentions that she is the senior at his new workplace. The master then mentions that it's been a long time since he last saw Fate, and he didn't expect him to show up with a girlfriend. This makes both Fate and Roxy embarrassed, and later the master states that he knows of a warrior who made a fortune due to those goblin corpses. He states that the warrior found dead goblins with both the ears intact when he went goblin hunting, and Roxy thinks that a warrior wouldn't leave the reward after hunting the goblins, so it must be the work of a stray monster, and the master thinks that this would be bad for business. Fate wonders why, and the master explains that they must pass through the goblin meadows if they want to do business in the capital, and if there is some unknown monster, then no one will want to go through there. Fate thinks that this is his fault, and the old man named Addo then comes there. We see that Fate knows this old man, and he tells them that he thinks that the stray monster is most likely a lich. He states that he has heard that the Holy Knights will move to subjugate it, and Fate thinks that he can't have Holy Knights as his enemies right now. Addo then asks Roki why she cares so much about the stray monster, and some warriors then come into the restaurant. They order some beer and food, and one of them tries to flirt with Roki, but Roki sends him flying with a finger flick. One of the warriors thinks that only a holy knight can do that move, and Roki then reveals herself as Roxy. She apologizes for deceiving everyone, and the warriors then ask her forgiveness for their rude behavior, and they ask her to take this money and spare their lives. Roxy then mentions that she feels ashamed that the holy knights who are supposed to protect the people are feared by them instead, and she states that her father wished for a world where they could laugh together with their people, and she states that her wish is also the same. Fate thinks that he will always be with Roxy until her wish comes true, and Roxy then has some fun with the people in the restaurant. The scene then cuts to Greed getting some maintenance by a blacksmith, and afterwards Fate thanks Roxy for this. Roxy also thanks Fate for helping her find out about the stray monster, and Fate wonders why Roxy didn't know about that. Roxy states that she thinks that the Vleriks blocked that information from reaching her, and they then hear the voice of Hato Vlerik. They go to check what's happening, and Roxy notices Hato misbehaving with a child. Memel states that they were given the custody of this lost child, and Roxy wonders what kind of custody this is. Faye then frees the child from Hato on Roxy's orders, and Roxy states that she will take care of him from here. Roxy then asks Rafael why he didn't tell her about the stray monster, and Rafael states that he thought that Roxy was still reminiscing about her father who passed away. Roxy states that she is all good now, and Rafael mentions that he understands, and the Vlerik siblings then leave. The kid then states that he really hates the Holy Knights, and Fate asks him if he is lost. The kid mentions that he came here with his mom, and Fate states that they will help him find her. Roxy and Fate then look around the town for the kid's mother, and Fate thinks that he also got lost in this city once. He thinks that it was when his father died, and he came to the capital, and it's been 5 years since then. We see that a holy knight helped him at that time, and he wonders how she is doing right now. They then manage to find the kid's mother, and she thanks them for looking out for her child. Fate thinks that he is glad that they found her, and he mentions that they should get back soon or they are going to get scolded. Roxy then wonders if Fate will keep her company during the scolding, and Fate states that he will. The scene then cuts to them getting scolded by Haru, and afterwards Fate thinks that he needs a way to hunt monsters without being noticed by Lady Roxy. He wonders what he should do, and Greed mentions that there is a way, and he shows Fate a mask at one of the shops in town, and he mentions that this mask is a magic item which can conceal someone's identity. Fate thinks that it's perfect for him, and he then also stops by the gem store. The scene then cuts to Fate giving Roxy a gem ore as thanks for hiring him, and Roxy notices that there is a gem inside the ore. She thinks that it's pretty, and she mentions that she will treasure it. She asks Fate what he wants in return, and she states that she can give him a whetstone or a year's supply of meat. Fate states that he doesn't want anything, and Greed tells him to not refuse the offer, and ask for the whetstone. Meanwhile, we see that the other Holy Knights are having a meeting to discuss the expedition to Gallia. Thanks for watching part 3, the rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it.